Let us pray. As Canadians and as Albertans, we give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we rededicate ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Honorable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I have the great pleasure today of introducing 5 very special guests from Edmonton's sister city, Harbin, and Heilongjiang, in China. Presently, they are seated in the Speaker's Gallery. Mr. Xu of the Harbin People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries is accompanied by Mr. Chi, Mr. Liu, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Wu. Also seated today, Mr. Ron Hodges and Mr. Cliff Phillips from the Edmonton Harbin Friendship Society and Rockford Lang from my department. The delegation is here to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the twinning agreement between the City of Edmonton and the City of Harbin. During their stay, I understand they will be meeting with local government and municipal officials, visiting our secondary schools, and participating in the 5th anniversary celebrations organized by the City of Edmonton. I would also like to point out at this time, Mr. Speaker, that 1991 will be the 10th anniversary of the twinning relationship between the province of Alberta and the province of Heilongjiang in China. These gentlemen have now risen in their place. I'm sure that in particular the member from Glengarry, who had a visit to Harbin when he was mayor of the city and was participated in this process, and all my colleagues would join in welcoming these gentlemen to our assembly.
The member for Calgary Bowl.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you to the members of this assembly 37 students from Queen Elizabeth High School in the constituency of Calgary Bow. They are currently studying government, and we have the grade 10 class plus the honors class. There are 11 seated in the members gallery and 26 in the public gallery with their teacher Gail Hicks and volunteer Glenn McDonald. I'd ask them to stand please now and receive the warm welcome of this assembly. Thank you.
Deputy Government House Leader, Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, there are some very special guests in both your gallery and the members' gallery today, and at the outset, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to express their appreciation for your courtesy in greeting them today in the Carillon Room. Seated in your gallery, Mr. Speaker, as well as the members' gallery, are very proud Korean veterans, and I'd ask them, as I call their name, to rise both in your gallery. From Edmonton, Mr. Kenneth Campbell and Esther Kortzman, Mr. and Mrs. James Colville, Mr. Gordon Brown from Lethbridge. As well, Mr. Speaker, we have seated in your gallery 2 of our security people who are also Korean veterans, Mr. Everett Johnson and Mr. Chuck Mullins. And if I may, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, ask our own Sergeant-at-Arms, Oscar Lacombe, who's a Korean veteran, to rise as well. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we have in the members gallery some 40 Korean veterans and their families, and I would ask them now to rise in the gallery. And I would ask all my colleagues in this House, Mr. Speaker, to welcome these very special people to the legislature today.
Honorable members, there are 2 other members who should be recognized for having participated in that conflict. I'd ask them to rise in the House, the Minister of Advanced Education and the member for Lloydminster.
Presenting petitions.
Member for Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to present a petition signed by almost 60 people from Ernest Manning Senior High School in Calgary. The petition asks for a delay in pulp and forestry projects until class environmental assessment has been done on the cumulative effects and until individual assessments, including public hearings, have been conducted on each forestry project.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Member for West Loch Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce Bill number 240, an act to amend the Hail and Crop Insurance Act. This bill provides for a 14-day period, Mr. Speaker, during which the owner or possessor of assets that have been seized under the Act can submit an objection, as is already the case under the Seizures Act.
The honourable member for West Loch Sturgeon has moved first reading to Bill 240, an act to amend the Hail and Crop Insurance Act. Those members in favour of giving first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 240, an act to amend the Hail and Crop Insurance Act, introduced by the honourable member Mr. Taylor, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Honourable Leader of the Opposition asked me if a certain individual, Mr. McLaren, is a person who administers my blind trust, and I said yes. The Leader of the Opposition then said, Mr. Speaker, then the Premier is saying, because this is a very serious matter, that Mr. McLaren is acting as an agent for the Premier, and therefore he's admitting that he should be put down in that disclosure following the Legislative Assembly Act. I said, Mr. Speaker, I would get the information for the honourable member, and I'm pleased to table or file the report from the Parliamentary Council confirming my answers, and that my answers are correct, and that this matter has been handled correctly.
Additional.
Introduction of special guests.
Interesting. Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, followed by the Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to draw to your attention and to members of the House a former colleague from the Legislative Assembly of this province who served with us from 1979 to 1986 as the member for Calgary Forest Lawn, and in his last term was Minister of Energy. I'd ask Mr. John Cesarni to stand and receive the recognition and welcome back to the Assembly.
Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, in the members gallery, I would like to introduce to you and members of the Assembly a colleague in terms of representing constituents. Yvonne Fritz is the alderman for Ward 5 that covers the constituents of Calgary Montrose and Calgary McCall. She is here as a member of the Care West Board for the Alberta Hospitals Association. She's a very good representative, and I consider her a friend, and I'd like her to stand and be acknowledged. Ms. Fritz.
Member for Calgary Foothills, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased today to be able to introduce again to you and through you a former colleague and member of this Assembly who served as a member and a minister in this Assembly from 1972 to 1982. He represented the riding of Calgary Foothills. He's seated in the members gallery, Mr. Stuart McCrae. I'd ask you to join in extending a hearty welcome.
Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to the members of this Assembly 20 students from Donnan Elementary School in the constituency of Edmonton Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teachers, Mrs. Arlene Farron and Miss Linda Scott. They are seated in the public gallery. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Avonmore again, followed by the Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, again it is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 26 students from Hazeldean School, again in the constituency of Avonmore. They are accompanied by teachers Don Brook and Darren Schlees and parents James Logan. They are seated in the public gallery. I would ask that they please rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to welcome to the Assembly and introduce to you and through you to the members 27 grade 6 students from the Daysland School, accompanied by their teacher Milt Openshaw, parents Adam Babick, Werner Strohacker, Mona Urquhart, and Faye Browsen, and bus driver Tom Brinker. They're seated in the members' gallery, and I'd ask that they rise and receive the cordial welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Well, Mr. Speaker, surprised I was going to ask about code of ethics, but I guess we won't. I'll transfer over to the treasurer, Mr. Speaker. My friend, the treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this province is in serious financial shape. There's absolutely no doubt about that, Mr. Speaker. And one of the reasons is that this treasurer has been cooking the books to make himself look good when he reads the budget address here in March, Mr. Speaker. Even he must admit that this last provincial budget is totally and absolutely out of date. Let me just go through, Mr. Speaker. $326 million in special warrants since March. Debt servicing costs up from 9.65 to 1.2 billion. Stabilization that we're not getting from Mulroney's made it clear. The price of oil we don't know, Mr. Speaker. And apparently he told Tory faithful behind closed doors, Mr. Speaker, that the deficit was bigger in 1989 and 90 than they originally said. My question to the treasurer is simply this. When will this legislature, which is supposed to deal with financial matters of the province, not the Tory faithful behind closed doors, when will we get an update, the same sort of update that they got behind closed doors, Mr. Speaker?
Right on.
Well, the doors are closed. Mr. Speaker, as usual, we'll be providing any kind of information the member would like to ask for, and if you just calm down, we'd be glad to help him with the special warrants, the update at all. I can recall, Mr. Speaker, that this House adjourned in July of 1990, some, 90, 100 and so days ago. And at that point, Mr. Speaker, I said to the members of the Assembly and to all Albertans that the government of Alberta was on its plan, on course. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, the member from Norwood was flailing his arms in the air in all kinds of ways, yelling and screaming about what, Mr. Speaker? About a low oil price, Mr. Speaker. A low oil price. And I said to him, as the Minister of Energy has just pointed out, give us your forecast, Mr. Expert. Take a risk.
A drip under pressure.
Speak to the people of Alberta about the assumptions that you would use. Not a word, Speaker. Not a word. I could embarrass him by reading his words back, but no question about it, Mr. Speaker, it was the doom and gloom synopsis. And we tried to assure all Albertans that the $21 oil price forecast would be very close this year. Very close, Mr. Speaker. Well, now the price of oil, Mr. Speaker, I just checked it a few minutes ago, it's trading $32 a barrel. There's no doubt there's a war premium attached to the price of West Texas Intermediate right now. But, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that, in fact, the average oil price is very close, in fact, above our assumption. So in terms of that proxy, Mr. Speaker, I can assure Albertans that we're very close to our plan of action. Very close to our plan of action. Now, secondly, Mr. Speaker, the member of Norwood talks about the special warrants, as does the member of the Liberal Party, whatever his name is, Wavy over there, talks as well. Aye. Now, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, I think since it has been raised, I should have an opportunity to speak about some of the items that are included in the special warrant. Mr. Speaker, it's only fair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I'm sure we'll get that in the supplementary.
I never knew how brilliant this treasurer was. My God, he knew that there was a war coming, a possible war in the Middle East when he made his predictions. He'd been talking to Iraq. He was so clever, Mr. Speaker. What a man, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question, just to refer the treasurer to the question that I asked, is when are we in this legislature going to get a financial update the same as the Conservatives got behind closed doors? When are we going to get it, Mr. Speaker, rather than the silly, overblown rhetoric?
Speaker, that's why I'm here, Mr. Speaker, to give the member from Norwood an update. But you know, Mr. Speaker, it is curious that both he and the member from the Liberal Party, of course, really get upset and are quite distressed about the worst case scenarios. You know, they're piped up, they're pumped about the worst things that can happen, about the doom and gloom, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the member from Norwood in particular is one of those people who suffers from this anxiety. In fact, he only recovers his health and his serenity when disaster strikes. That's the only time he feels good, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me talk about the special warrants, because I'm sure Albertans want to hear about the special warrants. Now, they've already accused us of spending $300 million, which should have been in the budget. Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary system is clear on that point, that all governments have an opportunity to respond to unforeseen events, to disasters, to occurrences which are beyond anybody's forecast. And that's why special warrants are provided, Mr. Speaker. Just let's look at a few of these. Since you want an update, I think it's important that we do give an update with respect to special warrants. There is about $41.6 million for fire suppression, Mr. Speaker. Fire suppression, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's included in the $300 million. I know the member from Vegreville doesn't care about some of the other programs, and I'll make sure I underscore those in just a few minutes. Fire suppression. Now, we've heard these environmentalists cry about saving the forest, so what are we doing?
Sorry, hold it. Thank you. Provincial Treasurer, I send you this note, O'Shane 417. Answers to questions should be as brief as possible. Deal with the matter raised and should not provoke debate. No, you're still down. I'm sorry. Now, perhaps if we have the final supplementary here, we're going to have all the troops in the House be a little more quiet so we can hear what's going on, and the minister will get a chance to get on with the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're used to the verbal diarrhea coming from opposite, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
And the treasurer is right about one thing. I do suffer from anxiety. I suffer from anxiety every time he talks about the finances of the province, Mr. Speaker. But my question is, again, and I'll try to make it as clear as I can to the treasurer. He gave an update to the party faithful at a conservative gathering with all the few conservatives that are left in the province, Mr. Speaker. And he told them, he gave them an update on the finances of the province. The rightful place was here in the legislature, and I want to know if he will give us that same update here and we can spend some time debating it. Will he guarantee that this will happen now?
Mr. Speaker, with respect to your advice, I certainly take that as good warning. I should say that I think Beauchesne also cautions the opposition about provocative and debate incentive questions. And if the opposition is going to ask those questions which require a fairly full answer, Mr. Speaker, and demand information, I'm trying to do my best. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, that in March of this year, I presented an update in the 89-90 forecast showing that the expected deficit for the province for the March 31st, 1990 year end would be $1.828 billion. And in doing that, Mr. Speaker, when I talked to the very large turnout of members who follow this party at a policy conference dealing with the future, the vision of this province, where inputs from all people across Alberta were reflected in policies, which you will see to drive us through the 90s ahead. I talked to those people about the fact that in some of our forecasts, including the special warrants which I referred to, including stabilization, which is included in this profile, Mr. Speaker, may not be collected, in which case, Mr. Speaker, I could see the deficit rising above the $1.828 billion. I'm also giving the same information to the member from Norwood, Mr. Speaker, same sort of information. And that's essential. We've been telling our supporters, the very vast number of Albertans who support the Conservative Party, to let them know that this province is now on a course of balancing its budget for 91-92. And I'll be presenting that budget in due course sometime in March of this next year. But at the present time, Mr. Speaker, surely that both parties should be saying, well, isn't that good? Isn't it about time that if you control the expenditures, get a bit of break on the very difficult pricing arrangement we have in oil, that the government can balance the budget? Now, if I was in the opposition, that's what I'd be saying. I wouldn't be taking the negative point of view that they are. And let me confirm to Albertans, Mr. Speaker, that we're on course this year, and we will balance the...
Second main question.
I think we'll move in the second set of questions and stay with the Honourable Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, in a typical arrogant fashion from this government, he says that the people sitting in the Conservative Party behind a policy conference, he's talking to all Albertans. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure all the rest of the Albertans out there will be very interested in that statement, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. My other point, he says, isn't it good? Well, yes, Mr. Speaker, let's ask the Treasurer. Isn't it good that behind closed doors, $326 million in special warrants since the last budget? Isn't it good that our debt servicing, because of their mismanagement, has gone up to $1.2 billion from $9.65? Isn't it good that they cooked the books putting in $250 million in the stabilization plan? Isn't it good, Mr. Speaker? Isn't all that good? Isn't it good that the deficit's gone up another $800 million from 89 to 90, Mr. Speaker? My question is, again, I want to come back to the Treasurer and ask him this. The budget will not be coming down till next March at the earliest possible time. The budget is totally outdated, Mr. Speaker, and I want to ask the Treasurer or the Deputy House Leader why, as they do in the House of Commons from time to time, why we do not take, this is perhaps the most important thing that we're going to be debating, why we do not take time in this legislature to debate the finances of the provinces, including the revenues, including the expenditures, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Speaker, I'm sure if the member wants to put a resolution on the order paper, in fact, I think the current resolution talks about the fiscal policies. I'm sure at some point that could be called. We'd be very willing to talk about a variety of options which the government is pursuing to balance the budget for next year. And I can assure you this year, Mr. Speaker, we're very close to the balanced budget. I should note that the privatization of AGT has gone through, Mr. Speaker, and none of those dollars are included in the current forecast, Mr. Speaker, and that's above and beyond the kinds of dollars that are available to the province. But let me make just a couple of points. I can make a very broad profile about our policies. I've done it before. I'm not going to get into the shouting match that is endemic and characteristic of the leader of the opposition. But I will say that the people of Alberta know that we will balance the budget by 91-92. We are on track now, Mr. Speaker. We've had a break on the oil price. We've had some difficulties in terms of gas prices and exchange rates. And everyone in Alberta knows that the expenditure profile of this government has been the best of any government in Canada. And that expenditure profile has allowed us to ramp down the total expenditures and maintain a focus and a priority in health and education as we're doing, and at the same time stay close to the forecast budget position that I brought forth March of this year. Speaker, that is the situation. That is the update. I'd be glad to talk more specifically about special warrants. Again, I come back to say that these are not done behind closed doors. This is the parliamentary tradition that when emergencies occur, governments have the right, by a special warrant or by demanding more money, for targeted unexpected items, and we can respond, as we did in the nurses' case, for example, put through the wages. In the case of fire suppression, for example. In the case of disaster services, Mr. Speaker, those kinds of items are the items that are included in the $300 million. In context, $300 million out of a $12 billion expenditure is not a whole lot of money. But let me conclude and confirm that we're on course this year, and we will balance the budget next year.
Yeah. $300 million, not a lot of money. Gee, that sounds like C.D. Howe. What's a million, Mr. Speaker?
That's
What's
right.
a million in this province? What's 300 million, Mr. Speaker? My question is, back to the Treasurer, is simply this then. Will the Treasurer tell us today what the actual deficit was from the 1989-90 period? Apparently he shared that information with the Tory faithful. What was our actual deficit in that period of time, Mr. Speaker?
Again, Mr. Speaker, I draw the member's attention to the 1990 budget address. And in that budget address, Mr. Speaker, I pointed out that in 89-90 our forecast deficit is 1.8.
Provincial Treasurer for just half more. Now, order on this side of the House that involves various sets of benches, not just one party. I'd like you, please, to tone it down. If you have some conversation, perhaps you can go take a cup of coffee. The chair can't hear what the answer is. Thank you very much. You've always got an answer, my friend. I know. Thank you. Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, just to continue before the noise and interruption by the opposition, who are demanding to hear the answers but not wanting to hear the information. $1.8 billion is in fact what I forecast in the budget of March of 1990, Mr. Speaker. And as I point out to many people, that two things or several things that happened. Certainly, the price of oil in the first part of the year had reduced our expected revenues, and of course that must be factored in. That in fact the stabilization claim was still proceeding. We had not received good word. In fact, much confirmation that the federal government is going to be willing to pay us the $539 million is due to us. And moreover, Mr. Speaker, because of the central government policy to rise or to keep the interest rates up, obviously in terms of our debt servicing costs, there was some exposure there as well. Now, you don't have to be a financial genius to go from $1.8 billion to something over $2 billion by simply dealing with stabilization. And that's essentially what I advise my colleagues, and I'll advise anybody that if stabilization isn't paid, obviously my forecast from March of 1990 of $1.8 billion plus stabilization of about $200 million takes you close to $2 billion level. And that's what I'm telling the member from Norwood, that's what I'm telling the people of Alberta, and that's what I've told everyone who's asked me who is willing to listen to the answer, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, that's precisely the point that we're trying to get through this sick government skull, Mr. Speaker, is that the budgeting process...
Oh, poor kid.
Mr. Speaker, I am sorry that I hurt his feelings, Mr. Speaker. I'm very sorry that I hurt his feelings. But that the budgeting process is totally out of whack. You should not put in stabilization payments till you get the money.
Here.
You should budget realistically in the price of oil. You should budget realistically. You should include the unfunded liabilities, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
That's the point. And my question to the Treasurer is simply this, and could he give us an update at this point about what our accumulated deficit is at this particular time?
Speaker, the member covers a large expanse of waterfront in his questions, and I'd be very, very pleased to respond, but I know you're going to get edgy because some of this has been dealt with already. Let me say again, Mr. Speaker, that if you go back to 1986 to present, the current debt of the province is running about $9 to $9.5 billion, Mr. Speaker. That's on our budget course, exactly as we outlined. With respect to the other items that the member talked about, let me just focus in on stabilization in particular. The member has said that we are hiding something. First of all, I object to that in the most strenuous fashion. Nothing has been hidden. And secondly, the member has said that this is a sick government. That, Mr. Speaker, is not parliamentary, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But thirdly, with respect to disclosure, we thought it was only fair in terms of providing Albertans with fair estimation of what is due to us from the federal government as a result of fiscal federal policies which the province of Alberta must be able to participate in, that in fact it was owed to us some $539 million. Now, it's always a problem to account for that, and so we wanted to provide as much information as possible to show that we were continuing to bring pressure against the federal government to collect this money which is due to the province of Alberta, to the people of Alberta, to the taxpayers of Alberta. Now, we have in fact collected $75 million already, and those negotiations are proceeding. Now, as I've said in the House time and time again, it's important that we do all these things, but it's also important and risky that when you put the money up front and give people all information, as we have done clearly, that you sometimes are going to fail, because the federal government has no commitment to pay that money until December of 1990, and as I repeatedly say, we may have to pursue this in court to collect what is rightfully ours. Now, the member from Norwood should be coming to our assistance. What instead is he doing? He's actually saying to the federal government, ignore this calculation. And that is exactly the kind of objection that I think that this party should reflect upon. Because they are not working in the best interests of Albertans, as is this government, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I brought to the attention of this Assembly the fact that pals of the government have been treated most generously by the government. Churchill Development Corporation received $14 million. Pocklington, $60 million. Alberta Pacific Terminals, $12 million. Now we learn today that the pals of the government disease has struck again. We learn that VenCap has provided monies to a venture capital company in California. Now, my questions are to the Minister of Economic Development. Given that the previous Minister of Economic Development, when he introduced legislation on VenCap in this Assembly, represented that monies, taxpayers' monies, would go to Albertans for Alberta businesses in Alberta, will the minister stand up and condemn and tell us that the lending of these monies to a California company is clearly wrong and breaches the conditions that were set out in the Assembly by his previous minister?
Mr. Speaker, I should indicate to the honourable member, if he knows anything about the attraction of high technology, he will know that it is important that companies such as this know what is taking place on a worldwide basis. And for that reason, they have some investments with the hopes of attracting high technology to the province of Alberta, which we recognize is so important to this province.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think that the minister heard my question. The question is this, that a pal, Mr. Starko, who is clearly a benefactor of this government and a great pal of probably the minister and most of the cabinet, has received benefits by VenCap funding a California company. Now, is that wrong or is it right?
Mr. Speaker, let me indicate to the honourable member that he is not a pal of mine. He's not an acquaintance of mine. He's probably closer to the honourable member from Glengarry than he is to me. But notwithstanding that fact, I've indicated on a number of occasions in this House, and if the honourable member wishes to persist in twisting the facts, that's fine. I'm sure the public will recognize it as such. But VenCap does not take direction from this government. It's interesting, the NDP just yesterday in their debate suggested that they be arm's length and government not be involved in this type of activity. We're not involved with the decisions that VenCap makes, and that's a conscious decision whereby they are at arm's length from this government so that they cannot be involved with any type of political interference. And I'm happy to leave the honourable member with that assurance.
Hell, they're in bed with you.
Mr. Speaker, the information that I have is that this particular initiative by VenCap was cleared with the Alberta government. That means that the minister or his colleagues or the government were involved. Is this a right action or a wrong action? Give us an answer.
Mr. Speaker, I just gave the honourable member the answer. Let me repeat it for him. The information that he has is incorrect, as is typical with his information. It was never cleared with this minister. This minister is the minister that responds to the Legislative Assembly on behalf of VenCap. It was never cleared with me. Again, the honourable member is false, as he is consistently in this Legislative Assembly.
Honourable member for Edmonton Glengarry. The reference to Beauchesne again, I think I've had to quote this earlier in the week, and we're only up to Wednesday. 409 subsection 7. The question must adhere to the proprieties of the House in terms of inferences imputing motives or casting aspersions upon persons within the House or out of it. And the chair is increasingly concerned at the number of times that this happens in this House. It's your responsibility as members to be vigilant on behalf of those people out there who don't have the right to defend themselves in this place. So if I'm going to have to keep jamming this into this House, I'm going to have to do it. And questions will be ruled totally out of order, and question time will be taken away. Calgary Fish Creek.
Order, please. Mr. Speaker, I would like to direct a question today to the Minister of Health, but before doing so, and hopefully with your concurrence, Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out to the members that for the first time in the history of this legislature, question period is being interpreted in sign language for the benefit of deaf Albertans who watch the late evening telecast of question period. I might add, Mr. Speaker, that Alberta is the first province in Canada to provide such a service, and in your behalf, Mr. Speaker, and in behalf of all the members, I would like to welcome those deaf Albertans who are watching the telecast of today's and indeed of future question periods. And now to the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Children's Hospital has announced its decision to terminate outreach therapy services which for several years have been provided to special needs infants at the Providence Child Development Center in Calgary. This decision, Mr. Speaker, will profoundly impact the developmental progress that has been achieved by these special needs children. Consequently, I would like to ask the Minister of Health if she'd be prepared to ask the Alberta Children's Hospital Board and senior management to reconsider this most regrettable decision. Good question.
Mr. Speaker, we ask a Board of Trustees to make decisions on our behalf, particularly when it comes to a provincial hospital board like the Alberta Children's Hospital is. And they accept responsibility as citizens of this province for that decision as our agents. I think having given them that responsibility, we don't withdraw it or remove it when the moments are such that we don't agree with them, or when it comes to us having some political discomfort over those decisions. I know that the board of the Alberta Children's Hospital has struggled very much to ensure that the care of children is in fact not profoundly impacted by their budgetary decisions. And I would remind members of this House that the funding allocation to the Alberta Children's Hospital this year over last was an increase of 10%. I think we have to entrust it to our boards to make the decisions that are required, and once they've made them, accept that they had the right to make those decisions.
Mr. Speaker, I was interested in the Minister's reference in her reply to a budgetary decision and the fact that the hospital received a 10% increase. In view of the statements made, the public statements made by the President of the Alberta Children's Hospital, that even if he were given an additional $2 or $3 million in new funding, he would not necessarily sustain or continue this modestly priced $200,000 program. It's not a question of money, it's a question of changing policies and priorities. And my question to the Minister, would she be prepared to intercede in our behalf and at least ask the board, the senior manager, to provide us with a statement of those priorities under which this remarkable program has been slashed?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure who the honourable member is referring to when he says us. He certainly is every right as a member of this Assembly and as a citizen affected by those services to make that request himself as the chairman of the board. I would note that modifications have been made to ambulatory care services at the Alberta Children's Hospital. Some children are now going to be required to visit the hospital for treatment as opposed to have the treatment outside in the center, and there will be a reduction in the number of treatments available. Each child, however, is going to be assessed on an individual basis, and certainly the goal is to ensure that the best possible treatment is provided to those children within the available resources.
Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, despite the Minister of Health's lofty speech to the 3,000 or so delegates at the Alberta Hospital Association this morning, she unfortunately failed to acknowledge in any way that the prime reason so many hospitals are facing deficits in this province is because of her broken promise. Last year, the minister told the AHA to go ahead and to negotiate good contracts with the nurses and other employees. But then after the settlements were in, the minister comes back, pulls the rug out from under them, and funds them less than 75% of the cost of those wages.
Right.
It's no wonder the hospitals are left with deficits, no wonder that they feel betrayed and now in revolt.
Hear, hear.
Will the minister not agree that it is not the hospitals who are unwilling to balance their books that is the problem, but the real problem is that it's this minister who is unwilling to fulfill her real previous commitment to them of last year?
Mr. Speaker, at no time did I ever say that this province would fully pay for the cost of the nursing settlements. What we did say at the outset of negotiations 1 year ago from now was to say we would review any nursing contract knowing that given the settlements in other provinces for the same period of time, we were probably facing an increase beyond the 3% that we'd already provided to hospitals. We did not pull the rug out from under the feet, in the words of the honourable member, from the hospitals. And in fact, the 47 million to the acute and long-term care sector and the 3.9 million to the health unit sector averages out to be approximately 90% of the cost of that settlement. I think that's a very reasonable, in fact, generous support for both nurses and for hospitals and health units in this province, given the province's fiscal position.
Mr. Speaker, the minister, that is a blatant, the minister knows that 90% figure is patently false, that it is in fact less than 75% of the nurses. This is from the Alberta Hospital Association themselves. And who else does the minister expect, who else does she expect to fund these settlements? Anyway, you think the hospital is going to have a bake sale or something for these nurses or what?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member. That was a question. It might be rhetorical, but let's have the question and get on with it.
Mr. Speaker, given the blatant unfairness of this funding broken promise that has forced the hospitals into closing beds, laying off staff, lengthening waiting lists, and now run deficits, how can the minister in any conscience now threaten to go to these deficit-ridden hospitals who are in defiance, such as the hospital in Fort Saskatchewan or Lamont or Grand Prairie throughout the province, and threaten to dissolve those boards and to fire that administration just because of her broken promises?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, the allegations made by the member for Edmonton Centre are clearly false. No time in my speech, and I would be more than happy to table a copy for it in case he wasn't listening while he was sitting there, did I suggest that we were going to do firing of people in terms of administration and closing down hospital boards. But interestingly, having heard the first question from his leader, the leader of the opposition today, which referred to the serious financial shape that Alberta is in, all of a sudden we have the member for Edmonton Centre saying, we want more, we want more, we want more. Well, you know what, Mr. Speaker? Everybody wants more. And the appetite of health is never going to be fully satisfied, no matter how much we give them. And quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, the easiest approach, and naturally the approach suggested by the official opposition, is to simply take more money. And I would argue, and this government would argue, that it is also the most irresponsible approach to take. To only say, Mr. Speaker, that more is the only answer, is to make a choice. And the choice that's being made is to systematically and deliberately lower the standard of living of the kids in this province, where when they have to pay for that debt 20 years from now, that's not part of the legacy that I'm going to leave or this government is going to leave for this province.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the Financial Administration Act, Section 30, to which the Honourable Treasurer has referred, does allow for special warrants, and this is the quote direct from the Act, when an expenditure of public money is urgently required. Now, the provincial treasurer did refer to some special warrants, but he omitted to mention some that included purchases of fence posts, maintenance of scientific equipment in the Attorney General's office, and the ongoing operation of the Environmental Council of Canada. Only a few of 26 special warrants amongst a total of $326 million. My question today is to the Minister of Tourism, and referring to an order in Council dated October 26, 1990, a special warrant was approved of $7.6 million, actually a little more than that, under the Canada-Alberta Tourism Agreement, and an additional $7.6 million over the $3.8 million that was budgeted. My question to the Minister is, could the Minister please inform the House as to what the urgency was for requesting more than twice the amount of money that was originally approved in the budget?
Mr. Speaker, I'd be glad to, as you all know, the Canada-Alberta Tourism Agreement came to an end, and applications were very furious last fall. All of the decisions were made by the committees in March, and the program, 5-year program, is now over. Acceleration, a lot of those projects that were assisted were accelerated by the proponents, and the estimates were low as to the amount of applications and contracts that would be fulfilled, and therefore the special warrant.
My second question then, Mr. Speaker, is that given that the $7.6 million is for capital projects, what was the urgency, what was the need to thwart the normal budgetary process, leave that out of the budget that we had in March, and suddenly include it now at this time of the year?
Mr. Speaker, the Canada-Alberta Agreement was a $56 million agreement over a 5-year period, and the acceleration of the cash flow within the budget process has been caused by the excitement throughout the province and the rapid development of those projects that were helped, and we're glad that those projects are going forward, and therefore the acceleration of that cash flow has caused the special warrant.
Clover Bar, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister of Health. The Fort Saskatchewan Hospital is in great difficulty due to the request by the Minister that a break-even position be achieved without adversely affecting current service levels. The Board has reduced the estimated deficit of $400,000 by some $173,000. I am told that further cuts will, in fact, affect service levels. The annual outpatient growth has increased by 63% in this area, and is expected to further increase due to the economic diversification, Dow expansion. Will the Minister sit down with this hospital board, review their special circumstances, and cooperatively develop alternatives that will address their pressing funding and their service level problems?
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated at the Alberta Hospital Association convention this morning, living within a balanced budgetary plan for our hospital is not an option. It is an obligation, and it's an obligation not only to service today, but to future generations of Albertans, so that we can be sure that we have a health system 20 years from now. That's why we're all working as hard as we are on it. However, I am prepared to be flexible in the time frame in which they balance their budget, but I would put 2 conditions on that flexibility. The first one would be that the budget has to be balanced within a reasonable period of time. The second is that the flexibility in the time frame will only be used for those boards who are least able to balance their budget by the end of this fiscal year, as opposed to those least willing to balance their budget. And as I indicated as well at the AHA this morning, if any hospital board feels they are incapable of balancing their budget, for them to simply let me know, and I will send in someone that can help them do it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rather than recommend blindly additional funding, as the NDP does whenever there's a problem, not that it solves the problem, I would ask the Minister to explore not just the funding situation, but also alternatives to service that should be explored. Such alternatives, and I would suggest, might be the Victoria Health project.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I think certainly the issue of being as much assistance as we possibly can be to boards who are doing a very important service for this province is something that this government feels very strongly about. The acute care funding plan, which is in place in Alberta, and in fact, frankly, and not in just my words, but in the words of other health ministers across Canada, is leading the way in health reform across Canada. The acute care funding plan, I believe, can be a very useful instrument to all our hospitals as they look to the appropriate allocation of resources for serving the health needs of their community. And I also will say, in answer to the first question, that I will be happy with my department to work with all hospital boards in this province so we can get on with the job of ensuring that we do not continue to build in debt and deficits into our hospital budgeting.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In March of 1988, more than 2 years ago, Vice President General Manager of Daishao, Mr. Kitagawa, promised the Lubicon people they would not log Lubicon lands until there was a settlement, and afterward they would consult regarding any logging within the traditional Lubicon area. True to their word, they approached the government earlier this year with a request to log outside the Lubicon area, which, according to Mr. Higginbotham, the Assistant Deputy Minister, was passed on to the Premier and the Minister. He said, I quote, "That decision requires some political sanction. It's not strictly a forestry matter." And I would like the Minister to stand up and explain today why he made a political decision to veto Daishawa's request, precipitating a useless and needless confrontation with the Lubicon people.
Mr. Speaker, that just is not so. And I'll answer the question of the honourable member to clear up any confusion there may be in his mind as follows. The staff of the Alberta Forest Service met on 2 occasions late last summer with the Lubicon Band, and Chief Aminiak attended one of those meetings. On all reforestation and harvesting activities that were to be carried out in what the Lubicon considered to be their traditional area within the next year were at that time reviewed with the band. The band expressed no concerns except for logging in 2 specific new disposition areas. And Mr. Speaker, in fact, that was the 2 areas that I referred to in the letter that the honourable member for Jasper Place waived yesterday. There is no, the logging that is taking place in the 2 that were not raised as a concern by the Lubicon Band. One of them is about 90 kilometers away from the Lubicon Little Buffalo Reserve entitlement area. The other one is about 45 kilometers away from that entitlement area.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the confusion that the Minister has is that he can't really determine what the Lubicon lands are until such time as there's a settlement. We have no settlements, and I put it to him again because Mr. Hamoka, who is now in a senior capacity with Daishawa, said that he has approached the government and he has asked for alternative logging areas to carry the Boucher Brothers and the Brewsters operations through the winter. My question is quite simple. Why did the government refuse to honor that request?
Mr. Speaker, the entitlement area that has been set aside for the Lubicon is some 95 square miles. That 95 square mile entitlement area is an area that is under negotiation and discussion with the federal government with respect to the monetary settlement that may come. On that issue, the Attorney General may wish to supplement my answer. However, in this area that Daishawa is not logging in that area, they have not planned to log on that side of the Peace River this year. But let's be fair, Mr. Speaker. We cannot take all of northern Alberta and take it and say that nothing is going to happen there until a settlement takes place. There is good faith being put on behalf of Daishawa. There's good faith on behalf of our government and the leadership shown by our Premier to try and help resolve the issue. But men of goodwill on the Lubicon side and the federal government side must resolve the issue. It cannot continue to go on forever and ever.
Edmonton Belmont, followed by Edmonton Gold Bar this time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Family and Social Services. Mr. Speaker, for years we've been telling this government that we need meaningful job creation and job training programs, and the response that we get is quite frankly something that subsidizes business and cuts to career development and employment programs to the tune of over $15 million. Given that we've got 8% unemployment
a waiting list that is months long to try and get upgrading, and a 10-month waiting list at Alberta Vocational Centre for upgrading programs. What specific programs does this minister have to provide education and training to people who truly need that assistance before they get jobs?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the Minister for Career Development and Employment is going to want to supplement my answer, but I can assure the member opposite that I've worked very closely with my colleagues in caucus and cabinet at making sure that there are jobs available in this province. The member knows full well, again, we started to talk about the success of our diversification initiatives during this last 3 or 4 years. And it's interesting, Mr. Speaker, so often when we talk about diversification, and so often when we take some of those steps that are required to make sure that there are jobs available in this province, so often when we're taking those steps to make sure there are job opportunities available in this province, Mr. Speaker, it's the members opposite that are trying to stop us from doing that. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the member for Career Development and Employment is going to want to supplement my comments.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I certainly welcome the opportunity to respond in a supplementary manner. And the member for Edmonton-Belmont should be well aware that there's some $17 million on one program alone, the Employment Alternatives Program, which is working very satisfactory, I might add. And I work in many communities. We have some pilot projects that are right now we're monitoring and evaluating, working with people. But I want to ensure the member and all members of the Assembly that it's not our department's responsibility, nor the government's in this case, to create jobs for these people. But more importantly, is to assist in their developmental skills and their learning ability so that they're able to enter the workforce in a meaningful way. And to provide this opportunity not in a wage subsidy program, but in a learning and training process, so that they too will be able to be better citizens and to build their self-esteem and confidence so they'll be going on to a job and a successful, meaningful job.
Supplementary. Mr. Speaker, just to point out, we've cut work experience programs by $12.8 million, job readiness training programs by $1 million, and training allowances and assistance programs by $800,000 in the last budget alone. And without that education and training, the only entry-level job that these people are going to get is often low-skill, part-time, and minimum wage jobs. So I would ask the Minister of Career Development and Employment to, on behalf of those workers and especially those people who require assistance in getting back into the work world, when will this minister or this government undertake to look at minimum wage programs again and increase minimum wage so that it's at a survival level?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to deal with the wage matter at this point. It'll be, I'm sure, an opportunity at future occasions to deal with, and the Minister of Labour would more than welcome that as well. But I do want to take exception to the honourable member's remarks about the cuts or the reductions in programs. As I said, Mr. Speaker, to all members of the Assembly, that we are not involved in wage subsidy programs. So yes, we've looked at those closely, but we are working with and training more individuals, and there are more Albertans working today than there ever has been in the province in history. So tell me it isn't working, I say prove it to me.
Still coming. Honourable members, we've come to the end of question period. We've only been able to reach 9 topics in a general fashion today. I know we've taken an inordinate amount of time in terms of questions and answers, and I'm certain that both sides of the House will take it under advisement. Tomorrow we'll start shortening the preambles to all the questions radically. And also with regard to the answers, perhaps we go right to the heart of the matter without a number of parenthetical remarks. It would be appreciated because we have left 5 members waiting in the wings. Thank you. During question period, we had a few issues arise. First, Chair recognizes the member for Clover Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a point of order. It relates to the first question that was posed by the member from Edmonton Northlands to the provincial treasurer. Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker. Edmund Norwood, my apologies. The phrase that was used by the questioner was cooking the books, as it applied to the provincial treasurer, and I would raise the point of order under Beauchesne 317, which requires me to do so, and I would ask the Speaker to offer a ruling on that particular phrase. Now, I realize, Mr. Speaker, that 418, 488, 489, 490, or 491 does not list the phrase specifically. However, in its context, the way it was used, 486 of Beauchesne and 491 applies. Also, the standing order, our own... Mr. Speaker, I would appeal to you under...
Beauchesne made me do it.
I would also cite our... Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also quote our Standing Order 23I, which indicates that no member shall impute false or unavowed motives to another member. Now, I've researched that particular phrase, Mr. Speaker, and it arises in laboratory research, and it also arises from the accounting practice. In laboratory research, it refers to a procedure whereby the test results are so altered that the hypothesis is proven, so there is an intentionally distorted situation, intention to deceive, which applies. Similarly, in bookkeeping and accounting, the same intention, to present a deceptive position with the intention to defraud or deliberate deception is implied here. Now, Mr. Speaker, I also want to cite 481E in Beauchesne and 484.3 in Beauchesne, which applies specifically on the question of unavowed motives. Now, Mr. Speaker, there have been some outrageous statements made in this House by members, and these appear to be escalating. I think it results in a deterioration of the credibility of this House and all members within it. I find the remarks...
Take your place, honourable member. That's inappropriate comment, honourable member. No. Honourable members, perhaps you'd refer to section of Beauchesne 168 with respect to when the chair is trying to gain order in the House. Thank you. Now, would you like to briefly conclude your remarks, closing remark?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I find the escalation of the derogatory and unfounded statements in this House to be detrimental, and I would ask the Speaker to rule that the remark made by the honourable member is unparliamentary, and if the Speaker does so rule, that the member withdraw those remarks.
It's hypothetical. No, honourable member. The chair would recognize the Leader of the Opposition who made the comment if he wishes to make comment, and in actual fact the issue should be raised if the provincial treasurer took grave offence. But the Leader of the Opposition, please.
Mr. Speaker, in response to the member from wherever, Mr. Speaker, the point is that cooking the books is not unparliamentary in Beauchesne, Mr. Speaker, and I can't imagine why he'd be so exercised by it, Mr. Speaker. What we went through very clearly is things that were wrong in the last budget, and I'm trying to make the point, Mr. Speaker, and he can't decide out of the blue to become an expert in parliamentary procedure, something he knows nothing about, Mr. Speaker. It's either in Beauchesne or it isn't, and it isn't there, Mr. Speaker. How can he make rules like that?
Provincial Treasurer, brief comment.
Mr. Speaker, the Beauchesne is very instructive when you deal with unparliamentary language. Not only is it exhaustive in detailing those words which are in fact already by parliamentary standards eliminated from our normal usage, and which in a very broad sense are pejorative, and may in fact have connotations which are not probably intended. It is in fact very instructive to look at 491, which I think is the bigger section. 491 talks about whether or not the item or the word is included in the exhaustive list or not. There must be some modicum of decorum which exists in this House. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, you have attempted against limited odds in many cases to deal with that, Mr. Speaker. Now, what Beauchesne does say, Mr. Speaker, is that some words are in fact particularly offensive. And Beauchesne is specific with respect to lying. Lying, Mr. Speaker. Now, my colleague, the member from Clover Bar, has made a very close nexus between cooking the books and lying. The connection is clear, Mr. Speaker. And that's why, in this case, Mr. Speaker, this is much more than a frivolous action. Not only, Mr. Speaker, does it reflect on me, on all members of the government, and to some extent on my colleagues in the opposition, but, Mr. Speaker, it also reflects upon a servant of this legislative assembly, that is the Auditor General as well. Because it is his ultimate responsibility to report to this legislative assembly about what it is that is in the, quote, books. And he has not, to the best of my knowledge, over the history of the time that I've been involved, find any reason to say that there has been questionable procedures or that in fact the information has been misleading. And in fact we have applied consistent bases with which in fact we have dealt with the information which is put forward. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to look very carefully at the broad instruction that we received from Beauchesne, from the order, the standing orders under which we operate, and to some extent the parliamentary traditions which have existed previously. And in looking at all of those, Mr. Speaker, I think it is clear that you would find that the word cooking the books is pejorative, suggests that there is a misrepresentation or a lying involved, and I know that my colleague, the member from Norwood, would not want to leave that impression. No. And knowing him to be the honorable man that he is, he'll quickly come to his feet and retract that expression. Knowing him well, Mr. Speaker, I know he will.
Leader of the opposition? No.
I don't know what there's to apologize. It's not in Beauchesne. I mean, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. Too bad, Mr. Speaker.
Yep.
Well, honorable members, I want you to know that I'm very pleased to be back here for the fall. I know all of us would have died of boredom without coming back here this fall. The chair appreciates the intervention of various members, including the member for Clover Bar, with respect to trying to make all of us mindful of the various forms and usages within the House. And I know that all honorable members take that matter to heart in terms of serving in this particular assembly. The chair in this instance will follow the direction as given from the Committee Heritage Savings Trust Fund, where a similar matter, a similar phrase was used there, and the chairman of that committee at that time did not rule that the matter was unparliamentary. At that time, the member for Clover Bar appealed the chairman's ruling, but the chairman's ruling was upheld. Therefore, while the honorable members, there's no need for that. There's no need for that. While the chair will allow the phrase to stand in this instance, the chair also cautions the House to be much more careful in terms of phrases that are used. The word lie was not there. It was just the phrase was cooking the books. But having now declared that kind of statement, I still admonish the House to please be much more careful in the terminology. Thank you. Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to raise a point of order, but given the time we have spent on the last point of order with the member Clover Bar, and essentially it arises from the same set of questions, I will find my rebuttal elsewhere, Mr. Speaker.
purposes of the record, since Hansard does record many phrases that are heard, the chair heard the word communist shouted across the chamber. I wonder if the honourable member would be good enough to rise and withdraw the remark.
Mr. Speaker, in the heat of the moment and looking across, I was confused, and I'll retract that statement.
Order, please. Order. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, I think you will take that as an example. Thank you. Member for Edmonton Jasper Place, with regard to a matter that arose in the House yesterday.
You called on me? Mr. Speaker, you called on me? I refer, Your Honour, to Rochane, 490, at page 148, reference to debates, House of Commons, April 12, 1960, page 3175, as part of my defense. I have to say I'm glad that I didn't accuse another member of making false allegations, as the Minister of Health did today, or twisting facts, as another minister did. But I do want to refer to some other statements made by the Minister of Economic Development, which are in the Hansard of our Assembly, April 2nd, 1990, page 447, in which he states that comments made by another member are somewhat misleading. Statement by the same member on page 1178 of Hansard this year, where he states that a statement made by another member is very misleading. A statement by the Minister of Economic Development, June 5th, 1990, in which he states that that statements made by another member, in this case myself, were dishonest or not the truth, and also a further statement that by the same member, again referring to myself, when he says that that all the member, that is myself, does is continuously mislead the House and the public that he deals with. So I think it's probably pretty much in the record of this Assembly that the word that I used is not unparliamentary. I would have to say, in reference to the concern that the Minister has stated, that I believe he has stated, if not in the Assembly elsewhere, that he had no intention of misleading Albertans when he signed his name to a statement that Daeshawa subsidiaries would not log lands claimed by the Lubicon people. It's not up to me to determine the Minister's motives, and I have never said what his motivation may have been in making that statement. I don't wish to impute any motivations. I do wish it said, though, that there is logging going on, which is the result of potentially violent confrontation in the northern part of the province on lands claimed by the Lubicon people. And whether or not that's misleading, I think speaks for itself.
Member, Minister, briefly.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday when the comment was made about my misleading the public with respect to a letter, the unfortunate circumstance that I think it involves is taking a letter and taking whatever that letter says out of some context without reference to who the letter was written to and in what context that letter was written. It's my understanding that the letter was written to me from the gentleman based on a newspaper story that talked about the areas of concern to the Lubicons, and my answer reflected that. And that I never did say outside of the House that I didn't mean to mislead the public, because I was not misleading the public in any way, shape, or form. It's when you take a letter that is written to an individual and you take that out of context without recognizing the context it was written to. It was not meant to be a public document. It was meant to be a letter to an individual in response to a concern. And that the honourable member for Jasper Place decided to make that letter public without the other letter that was written that it referenced to, I don't feel is fair. However, I did not say outside of the House in any way that I misled the public. I think to one honourable member to another making that statement, I believe is truly not only unparliamentary, but I don't think it's in the good standing and decorum of this House or what the citizens of this province expect from their elected representatives. Thank you.
Well, there are a couple of issues here. In fact, there are three. First, the chair will allow the word misleading to stand because it is not listed in Beauchesne. In our own order and practice, from time to time we have ruled it out of order from the chair, possibly reflecting the tenure of the moment and the temperature of the moment in which it was uttered. The chair nevertheless decries the use of phrases such as this, no matter which side of the House they're being spoken from. And perhaps honorable members might think of some more gentle way of still getting the point across. Nevertheless, without insisting upon a retraction, the chair wants to bring to the attention of the honorable member for Jasper Place that a slight disservice was done to the House by that honorable member, perhaps inadvertently. The chair has had to deal with a similar matter with the House on another issue. I think at that time was with regard to the report of the principal group of companies. Some selective reading from correspondence. That in the Hansard record, it reads, quote, from the honorable member, Edmonton Jasper Place, quoting from the letter, will not be logging in the area of concern, close of quote. However, upon examining the letter which was tabled, the full quote is this, and I now quote, will not be logging in the area of concern this winter, close of quote. Now that may or may not reflect or the aspect of certain concerns, but the problem is there need to be, let's look at the complete quotes. Now, the other matter that is of concern to the chair is this, that in filing correspondence, it is indeed the tradition of the House of Commons and this Parliament as well, that one just doesn't file automatically, that indeed there is this tradition of having the consent, at least of the person to whom it was addressed, or the person who has or the person who has signed the letter, depending on the circumstance. Now, I know the practice is if you happen to have a letter from the minister, well, I suppose in a sense it's fair game. But there is that other responsibility to clear it with the person to whom it's addressed as well. Thank you, honorable members. I apologize to our special guest that it's taken so long to get to this next item in the agenda. Nevertheless, it's part of that parliamentary process, and we thank you for having fought in various campaigns to give us the right to be able to carry on as we do in this place. Orders of the day.
Government motions. Motion number 21, Honorable Mr. Gogo.